right. Break out your grape soda and chocolate donuts. We're going to talk about the Dreadnoks. And I've always been a huge fan. One of the best parts of the world of GIjoe is the Dreadnoks. They're just kind of scummy dudes, right? That's the whole idea of the Dreadnoks. They're a bunch of scummy guys and girls. And what made them so great is you knew they were a little unpredictable. You knew that Cobra Commander couldn't quite trust them, that they might just screw around. They might do anything they want. But they're dangerous enough to be worth hiring. We're going to rank all of the Dreadnoks, all right? The first round here, you're going to be like, who the hell are these people, maybe? Unless you're like a super fan, bigger than me. You're going to be like, who the hell are these guys? And what you find in later comic books is that the world of the Dreadnoks has expanded, so there's chapters all around America, and Zartan is sort of the leader of all of these chapters. They're sort of miniature army. And so here's what we're going to do to judge. How do you judge who's the best Dreadnok? And how, more than your favorite. We all have our favorites, but what makes a good Dreadnok? Well, here's what I see a Dreadnok being. If you're a Dreadnok, you are white trash, basically, right? You're kind of like white trash. Probably not American. In the case of, there's exceptions. Road Pig is from Detroit. But the majority of the Dreadnoks are, 1, white trash of some sort. 2, and of course Buzzer is not, but he's sort of the exception of white trash. He's an upper crust English dude who studies these guys and decides to become one of them. If you are a Dreadnok, you're basically white trash, right? This is why one of the YouTube guys I follow, it's Coffee with Toys, hello. This guy claims he does not like the Dreadnoks, even though he's a huge GIjoe fan, because, which I held against him until I found out the reason why. They could remind him of everybody in his hometown. Man, move out of there, because you do not want to be in a town where everybody is like the Dreadnoks, right? That's what makes them fun. So I get it. Won't hold it against you. Still watch your videos. But, here we go. So qualifications to be a Dreadnok, you're probably white trash. 2, qualifications to be a Dreadnok, maybe have an obnoxious accent, Australian, English, but heavy, right? Like heavy. Like I come from Rhode Island, and a lot of Rhode Islanders have a heavy, obnoxious Rhode Island accent. Okay. 3, you're like a biker, right? So you're gonna have the accoutrements of a biker in some extent. And 4, you have you love to destroy shit, right? So that's like the initial Dreadnoks, the concept of the Dreadnoks, where there's these guys and they use weapons that allow them to destroy shit. So that's what makes a good Dreadnok. And so we're going to judge. Let's start at the bottom. Now I'm going to tell you a bunch of these first few. You're not going to know what the hell I'm talking about unless you are deeply into the comics. But we're going to start with them anyway, because I want to be thorough. At the very bottom, we've got Machete. Now, Machete was sort of like a Ripper ripoff from GIjoe Renegades, which is a show I did enjoy and probably will review in the near future. But what I think he's kind of the worst is he just looks bland. He doesn't look that badass even. He doesn't even look that much like a biker. He looks like a normal dude. And he basically is a ripoff of Ripper, so we're going to put him dead last. And we're going to put all these 3 right together. Crusher, Demolisher, and Chop Shop. Crusher is at the bottom of this list, because Crusher is very obviously just Gnawgahyde with another dude's head on his body, right? He's supposed to be a wrestler that joined the Dreadnoks, and he was part of a Dreadnoks Rampage set that was put out in the day when they were doing convention exclusives and GIjoe conventions. Back in the day, you get them in a big box, and he came with a whole bunch of Dreadnoks that are of pretty low quality. So he's not really character, doesn't really have much lore, even though he may have showed up in the comic book here and there. And that's why most of these are at the bottom of the list. And they're really not that imaginative in their design. They're really repaints or very obvious attempt to just pack a bunch of Dreadnoks in a box and not really care about what they look like. We've got Demolisher, who is an Aboriginal Canadian. He's big dude who does not feel pain. We got Chop Shop, which is supposed to be the mechanic of the Dreadnoks. Lazy figure, not excited by these. Move past. The next one we're going to see is the other half of that Rampage set. And this is almost a good concept, but it just is not executed that well, in my opinion. So what we have here is we've got Billy Bob, Cletus, Joe Bob, Otis, Roscoe, and Vance. Okay? We have 2 sets of 3 brothers, triplets, that are all related, and they join the Dreadnoks. They're like Dreadnok Cousins, okay? And now, I kind of love that idea. It's kind of a fun idea, but I don't know why you're giving them names like Cletus, Billy Bob, Joe Bob. Those are very American, Appalachian, names for what you would find in a stereotype of a white trash dudes. No offense if you're white trash, by the way. I'm pretty much a white trash, so I can call it out if I want to, because I'm from that same variety of people. But what you're going to see is the Vance, Otis, Billy Bob, and crap. They just don't feel like Dreadnoks to me. They should be Australian. They should be Welsh. They should be from some country where they're going to have a thick accent. I don't think it works having this group. It feels lazy. It feels like an idea unfulfilled. Almost a cool idea. Doesn't really work. And then design-wise, they're pretty bland. So I'm going to put them next in line after this round. Now we start getting to some interesting guys. But again, we're at the bottom of the list. This guy was a GIjoe Collectors Club exclusive, Kaos. And he just, to me, doesn't have much of a story. His weapons are all wrong. He's got basically a weapon stolen from Shadow Tracker, flail of some sort, and he looks like a Road Warrior reject. And I get that the Road Warrior was one of the main inspirations for the Dreadnoks and for Ron Rudat's original designs, but they never quite felt exactly like Road Warrior figures, other than Road Pig. They really felt more like bikers. And so having this guy with a Jason hockey mask doesn't quite fit. I'm going to put one step above him, the next guy, which is Death Metal. And this is a guy, I don't know where he's from. He's hard to track down, but his look is just that much better than Kaos. This is a figure, and you'll see some customs of him online that look really good, and he's a good-looking figure. My problem with Death Metal, other than he doesn't really have much lore and much part in the story, is that he doesn't look or feel really much like a Dreadnok to me. He just feels more like something else. He feels like a cousin of Shadow Tracker, or really a Road Warrior reject. And the Dreadnoks don't wear masks in general. And, maybe you could have this one guy wear a mask. I'd be interested because he is cool looking. But, again, it just feels like he's somewhat of a lazy repaint and not something that really stands out. Okay, so next Dreadnok is Burnout. Now, Burnout, again, not one of their best characters. He's really an engineer but he is part of the lore, and he is somebody that came up, and he did have a figure in the anniversary collector's pack of Dreadnok, so you can have that set. And so he did have some representation as a figure, and then earlier was part of another GIjoe line, GIjoe Extreme, I think, not sure. I didn't have him. He brings the diversity into the Dreadnoks, which is not a very diverse bunch otherwise, I guess, but he's just not a very interesting character. Having him be an engineer, he doesn't have a unique weapon, and that here makes him not stand out really in any way. He's just kind of a guy with dreads. He's got a torch. He lights shit on fire. We already have one of those. His name is Torch. We don't really need Burnout. Now we're going to get to where they start to get interesting. And some of these are still in the obscure phase of maybe you don't know them, and they come up. And this one came up in a comic book where Roadblock has his own cooking show, and a bunch of Dreadnoks invade and try to screw up his cooking show. It's a pretty good comic. And we're going to have the next two are going to show up in that comic. And this guy, Rugrat. Now, there's not much to this character, but still, I kind of like the idea because he's a little weird-looking dude with a giant hat, right? That's basically all he is. He's just a little weird-looking guy with a funny face, bald, big nose, and wearing a big-ass hat. And you can see people have made customs of this guy. So there is a sort of, there are enough interest that you could do something with this character, Rugrat. I'd like to see him expanded. I'd like to see him brought in. I'd like to see him be given some sort of weapon that is his, that he can own, that is something that he can use to destroy things, and he'll feel more like a Dreadnok to me. Right now, he feels like a one-off character that you bring in for a couple comics, then kill off. But the idea of a little weird-looking guy in the Dreadnoks sounds fun. It feels like they would bust his chops a lot. It feels like he could be the butt of their jokes. It feels like maybe he'd have that like weird small guy crazy energy where they want to kick everybody's ass all the time. And so I was kind of into that character. Our next Dreadnok on the list comes from that exact same comic book and has been given a little bit more to do in the comics, and also has a figure that came out in the later Pursuit of Cobra line, and this is Heartwrencher. And not much to this character as far as I can tell, but she's a cute, punky looking girl with a tattoo on the midriff, and she's a hot Dreadnok girl. Okay, so kind of into that. Puts her higher on the list as being one of the only girls in the Dreadnoks. Not much to her character. Where I think she falls down is what they give her for a weapon is a large wrench, which to me feels like a lack of understanding of the concept of Dreadnoks. You know, we give the Dreadnoks, the good Dreadnoks have power tools. The power tools are part of their weapons. So they're almost getting it here, but what they're getting completely wrong is you can't do shit with a giant wrench, especially if you're a 90-pound woman. You're not going to do anything to anybody with a giant wrench. It's not an effective weapon. Anything else would be better. I mean, granted, yeah, you can hit me with a wrench, you knock me out, but you might as well just take the butt of your gun and hit somebody in the head with it. It's a pretty lame weapon, and she should have been given something that really says Dreadnok. So that's Heartwrencher. Give her some points for being hot punk rock girl. Low points on lack of imagination in the creation of the character and real understanding of what a Dreadnok is supposed to be. All right, now we're on the good side of the list. So I sped through that because now we're on the good side, where I think they begin to become the Dreadnoks you know and love, and their interesting design. Number 12 is Storm Rider. Now, you may not know Storm Rider unless you continued well into the Pursuit of Cobra line, which I do think the Pursuit of Cobra line is incredible moment for GIjoe, where it really came back. They were doing really interesting things in design. They created a bunch of characters that actually stand out and I think are worthy of resurrecting. You know, they've already resurrected Shadow Tractor, Agent Helix from around that same era, and another one here from that era is Storm Rider. We don't know a lot about Storm Rider. He doesn't have a lot of lore to him, but he's got a cool look, and he came with a really amazing motorcycle that had flip-up blades and shotguns in its front, and he had with him a nice little 45 Magnum or some sort of long pistol, and he also had what looked like a nail gun to me, right? So that to me is like, that says Dreadnok. Yeah, he had a mysterious look, a mohawk. He fit that road warrior look, and that biker gang look, and so he fit in as a nice addition to the Dreadnoks, even if, you know, he slipped in at a time where he hasn't been brought into the lore very much. We don't know much about him, but great looking figure. That was a good toy. I really liked it. I really liked his weapons, and I'd like to see him integrated into any new stories about the Dreadnoks that are coming up. And this is where we get into the later figures. These are the ones we know and love, and your order may be different from mine. Please tell me in the comments below what you think, what your order would be, who your favorite is, who your least favorite is. Of the remaining Dreadnoks that we know and love, I'm going to put at the very bottom, number 11, Gnawgahyde. Now, no shot at Gnawgahyde. I like Gnawgahyde. He's a very cool figure. I was very excited to get that figure when I was a kid. He looks great. Big, buff dude. Looking very outback Australian guy with a weird mustache. And he had his boar that's hanging out with him all the time. He had a nice little hunting rifle and a weapon as like a strap-on sword. It was kind of like a more like machete blade that would strap on your wrist, which I don't think works very well because you just need that. It would like bend and snap when you try to cut somebody with it. So I don't think it's a weapon that makes a ton of sense, but kind of good. He had a little knife in his boot and a bow and arrow. So he was a good looking character and a good figure. Why he goes for me at the bottom of the list is he could just be Cobra Hunter. I don't think he says specifically Dreadnok. He looks like a Dreadnok. He looks obnoxious. He looks gross. And they talk about on the file card how he greases himself with fat so that the animals won't smell him. And he's just going out and he's killing animals all the time. So he's kind of a gross character. But to me, he needs that element of destruction. A power tool. A weapon that is going to allow him to destroy things. That's what makes a Dreadnok. And he doesn't say biker to me. He seems like a veer off to the side and somebody not quite getting the whole concept of what a Dreadnok is. But he's still great. Still awesome. Looking forward to getting the classified version of him. Right behind our buddy Gnawgahyde, we've got another guy I have basically the same problem with. This is a character I love. This is a figure I really got into. Zanzibar, the Dreadnok pirate. Good figure. Good character. My problem and why he goes low on the list is, again, I don't think he nails it on the head of what a Dreadnok is. He's a pirate. A Dreadnok is not a pirate. He has a spear and a hammer and a gun. He, again, is a guy that kind of fits but feels a little off. And good character, but not the coolest of all. So I'm going to put him at number 10. Number 9, we have our buddy Thrasher here. All right, this is Thrasher. Now, he gets bonus points for coming with the Thunder Machine, which is like one of the most iconic vehicles in the Cobra GIjoe world. He's also nailing it. He looks like a Road Warrior character. He's sort of like described as a middle class guy who just got so spoiled he decided he wanted to destroy everything he touched. Had with him looked like a lacrosse stick with a spiked ball in it, which I thought was a kind of a cool weapon. There were two ways I imagined that weapon working, and one of them being it's just attached to the stick and you're just hitting people with the stick, which I think is probably what it meant to be. But I think actually an even cooler way is if that ball would come out and you could use it, hurl it at people and smash it into their faces, which is kind of how I would make him use it. Really great figure, and this is where we start getting into where I think they're nailing it, and we have great characters all the way up till our number 1, which I won't tell you what that is. Next we have Zandar. Okay, Zandar was a great figure, great looking character. I love the idea of the Zartan family. I'm a big fan of Zartan in general. I think Zartan is one of the greatest characters in the entire storyline. I think you have a handful of characters that have the depth of lore and interest and uniqueness. Snake Eyes, Destro, Storm Shadow, and at the high and then Zartan. I think Zartan is one of the best characters there is. And just as a part of the world of Zartan, have this brother and sister duo, and somebody else, as we'll see in a minute. So I really loved Zandar. I think the whole idea of Zandar is he's so good at being quiet. He's so good at hiding that nobody knows where he is and people forget he's there. He's kind of a handsome looking dude. He always struck me as he was stoic, tough looking guy. I made him pretty dangerous. I imagine he was a good fighter. Definitely of the three siblings, he's the least of them, but still a really cool and interesting character. And there was that fun little gag that they would play with in the comic book that He just didn't know where he was. Everybody forgot he was there. People would sit on him by accident. If he was, you know, in the room with them, they would forget he was there. And that was kind of fun. And he changed color, and he had the same abilities as Zarana and Zartan. So Zandar is a great character. Number 7, we have Monkeywrench. Monkeywrench is one of those where I think they nailed it on the head. As not being one of the first, he fit right in perfectly. He looked like the perfect 4th member of the band, right? He's just rough-looking guy, born on Guy Fawkes Day, obsessed with blowing things up. He's Welsh, so he brings in that idea that he's probably got a really obnoxious accent, gotten all kinds of trouble, loves explosives, strapped with grenades, and for a weapon, he had a mysteriously weird trident that seemed to have a rope attachment to it that he could fire off, and I never quite got that weapon, never quite understood what it did or how it attached or how it fit in with his explosives and his obsession with explosives. So I'm hoping when they come out with a Monkeywrench, they're going to focus, will give us that weapon, but focus more on these explosives that it comes with. I would like to see him come with a bunch of homemade pipe bombs, things like that. But great character, and definitely one that fits in the world of Dreadnoks perfectly. So that's Monkeywrench. Number 6, and this might be higher on the list than you may put this character, because you may not even know who this is. But we're talking about Zanya. This is Zartan's daughter. Now, at first I'm looking at it, and they did make a figure of this. She was in the collector's set. Came with a bunch of Dreadnoks, including Burnout, Zanya, a new road pig. But Zanya is one of those characters where maybe at first glance I was like, do we really need Zartan to have a daughter? But then I read the comics, and it's a great run of the comics. Her introduction is fantastic, and she brings a lot of depth and interest to the story. You know, the story of Zanya is she's this tough, scrappy girl growing up in Chicago, and she is like being paid. Her boyfriend is like using her to beat the shit out of men for money, and she's just like beating the living shit out of men twice her size, and in street fights, and just fighting dirty and just brutalizing them. And she's this brutal girl. And we find out through the backstory that she is Zartan's daughter, and that she finds this out when her mother tells her this. She's got a stepfather who's abusing her mother, and finally one day Zanya just accidentally burns down their house, kills her mother and her boyfriend, and flees and goes looking for Pappy, right? And finds Zartan, challenges him to a fight. And he realizes, shit, this is my daughter. Yeah, I was in Chicago at this time, laying some pipe, you know, because I guess he's Zartan. That's probably happened. He was not surprised when he finds out that he has a daughter. He's like, I probably have like 30 of them.
Fire the father!
But he brings her into the fold, and she becomes like a real worthy successor to him. And then there's all these sort of intrigue and infighting between Zarana and Zanya, and eventually she is set to take over the Dreadnoks when Zartan retires, I guess. Is he going to retire? I don't know. Do you retire when you're Zartan? Probably not. But so she's actually a great character. She's in IDW line issues. I don't know, put it in the description below. You can check it out. Worth reading, even if you're not like I'm not the biggest fan of the post Larry Hama, comic books. I haven't dived in and read all of them yet, but that was one of those ones which really motivates me to keep reading, because it was really good story, and she's a great character. Where she falls down, she looks good, but she needs that signature weapon that the other Dreadnoks have that would make her really fit in. But she's good looking. character. The figure looks a lot older than you'd imagine, because at the time in the comic book she's pretty young, and I like her being young because it's more disturbing of how like violent she is when we find out that she's, you know, like 19. But great character, really adds a lot to the lore, and totally interesting new chapter in the Dreadnok story. Okay, after Zanya, we've got 5 left, and these are the big ones. And number 5, I have Torch. Torch is basically, I love Torch's description on his file card. It's basically saying he's an illiterate, unrepentant thug, right? He's just a dumbass. And I always like imagine that the original 3 Dreadnoks kind of remind me of Spinal Tap, right? Like they just look like the 3 guys from Spinal Tap a little bit. I sort of see them as a goofy little weird metal band, you know. They work together nicely. And he's the dumbest of the 3, right? And that's not saying a lot because most of them are dumb. But came with a blowtorch, and I think that's probably why I put him 3rd in the iconic 3. I just think the blowtorch is not that exciting of a weapon in comparison, and he didn't come with anything else. I'm really hoping that they deck him out when they come out with the Classify, which he's got to be next, because you can't have Ripper and Buzzer and not have Torch, so he's got to be next. But I'm hoping they deck him out, give him some new weapons. They probably will. I think he should come with some Grape Soda and Chocolate Donuts. I think that's one of those issues where those things where they could, you know, do something really fun like they did with Quick Cake and the Fudgies. Have them come with chocolate donuts and grape soda and the torch, a knife, like, you know, this knife that's on his side here with a little brass knuckle attachment, and, you know, make him a little bit more unique. Got this visor that looks cool. So he's a cool looking character. And one of the original 3, so that's why he makes it to number 5. Number 4, we have Ripper. One of the best, really great loadout for this character. Originally came with that Jaws of Life, came with the machine gun with a big giant Ripper blade on it that he can use to tear apart pieces. I mean, I think that's one of the things that all these last characters really fit, is the Dreadnoks are characters that love to destroy shit. I mean, one of the first times they appear in the comic book, they go to a airfield and they just start tearing apart Sky Strikers, cutting off, you know, pieces of them until they fall down and explode, right? And that's how I always imagine the Dreadnoks, is they love to destroy shit, and that's why they have these weird power tool weapons. And so Ripper, really great looking figure, with some great weaponry. Can't wait to get my hands on the new one that's coming out any minute. Ripper's one of the best. Number 3. Okay, down to the last 3, and these are the 3 where, you know, maybe you have we might change order, you might disagree here, but I'm gonna put at number 3 Zarana. Zarana is one of the best characters in the entire GIjoe storyline, I think. One, hot punk rock pink hair girl. You also know she's got issues. You know, I used to have a thing for girls that had issues. You know, I learned it, but it took me a long time. And Zarana reminds me of that. She is hot. Okay, she's hot. Got the punk rock, the pink hair, and she also has this great little weapon that is a spinning, you know, blade. They gave her on the new classified version. She also comes with like an electric knife, and she's just a great looking figure. But even then, deeper than that, the lore of Zarana is really interesting. Just like her brothers, she can change color. She is a master of disguise, a master of camouflage. But what I love what it talks about with Zarana is when she goes under cover, she takes on the character, the person, to a psychotic level where she becomes them. She's like an actor, like a method actor, right? and is also just like an awful person in just all, you know, we mentioned that she doesn't leave a tip. She's always rude, evil, backstabbing, and that is in keeping with how she behaves in most of the lore too. Infamously, in the GIjoe movie, she was supposed to have a nude scene. They're supposed to see her from behind, but they chickened out and they gave her a bathing suit that was a little bit more suited for a child's movie, probably for the best. But Zarana is a tough character, always maneuvering, backstabbing, brutal fighter, brutal killer, a dangerous woman, and a really interesting part of the Dreadnok world. Possibly one of the best characters in the GIjoe storyline. We're not doing Zartan. Zartan is a Dreadnok, yes, but he's the leader of the Dreadnoks, and I don't think putting Zartan on this list makes any sense, because he would obviously be number one, because he's obviously the best character in the entire Dreadnok line. But as he's the leader, that's a whole other category. Number 2, Road Pig. Okay, Road Pig is probably a lot of your number ones, and I can see it. He's one of the best characters, one of the most unique looking. Just a massive lunk of a dude, and he had a really good loadout as a character. He had a big cinder block on a stick, you know, a hammer, which to me fulfills that desire. If you're going to be a Dreadnok, you need a weapon that is used for destruction, and he could clearly just mess anything up with that. He can mess anything up with his hands. He's just a massive guy. He also had the most iconically road warrior look of any of the Dreadnoks. He had a wrist crossbow that seemed to have, maybe I always imagined it was a little explosive because it had a round tip on it. So that, I thought that was a good little fun thing. And he also had, but what's great about Road Pig 2 is just the lore and the story. I mean, you read the file card, he's like described as the most disgusting of all of them, the ugliest, the most foul, somebody that is so vile that even the Dreadnoks aren't sure they want him around. But then you go into the comic book, and his lore is even more interesting. He's in love with Zarana. He's Zarana's boyfriend. And he's got split personalities. On one side, he's this just unrepentant thug moron who's just brutal and will destroy anything and will do anything for Zarana. And the other side, he's sort of well-spoken, soft-spoken, smart. And these split personalities are going back and forth between, and so that makes him a really fun character. It also makes him fun as the lore that he's Zarana's boyfriend, that he'll do anything for her, and she plays into that too, adding to both those characters. And she uses him, and he is this big lug, just the most powerful of all of them. Somebody you do not want to mess with, one of the best characters and most coolest looking in the line, and I think the one of the figures in the classified line we're looking forward to the most. But for my number one, I'm not picking Road Pig. I am picking Buzzer. Maybe it's nostalgia because he was the first that I got, and he's sort of the leader of the Dreadnoks, of the obviously beyond Zartan, we know the one who you're going to put in charge is Buzzer, if only because he's not a moron, right? Love his backstory too. Buzzer was an academic, a brilliant academic, right? Who went to study biker gangs and then decided that he wanted to be one of them. He was so attracted to the culture, he became one of them. And so he's like the one guy in the Dreadnoks that actually is from upper crust. It's kind of not a low class guy, but chooses the low class life. That makes him a fascinating character to me. And I'd love to see that backstory. Maybe they dive into it in the comics somewhere. Let me know if they do. But if they didn't, I would love to see that story. I think that would be a fascinating story. It makes him a fascinating character. He's got a great loadout, a diamond tip chainsaw. I mean, what kid doesn't want to play with a chainsaw or with their action figure? He also had that weird little blade on a chain. And he also had this gas can, which I mean, the new one even has better weapons, but didn't come with the gas can. I do miss the gas can a little bit, I gotta say, because love the idea that this guy's just carrying gasoline because he's gonna burn shit down, right? So Buzzer is my favorite Dreadnok. Really looking forward to getting my hands on that classified Buzzer. And overall, Love the Dreadnoks. Love what they represent. Love what they do and change the lore and what they add to GIjoe. Let me know what you think, who your favorite is, or your least favorite is. And did I miss any? Are there any hidden ones? I found several different lists listing Dreadnoks, and some of them had other ones I never heard of and couldn't find any information on. So let me know. Am I missing any? Please say it in the comments below. I'll see you later.
What is that idiot doing? We've heard it before.